Hello, I'm Craig Bennett, and Sam J. Jones became a pop culture icon as the big screen's Flash Gordon in the 80s. But Sam is more than that. He's a true Hollywood survivor, from flashing the flesh in Playgirl to becoming a stoner during his darkest days.
Medicating myself with marijuana.
What is his favourite movie, I hear you ask? Well, you might be shocked to hear it's not Flash Gordon. However, there is a sequel to Flash in the works.
He wants to do a live action Flash Gordon.
Stick around because Sam J. Jones gets incredibly candid. 43 years in showbiz and counting. How's this for a wow moment? Your movie debut was in the Blake Edwards classic 10 with Bo Derek and Dudley Moore and Dame Julie Andrews.
Blake Edwards was a legend. He was iconic. All of the Pink Panther movies. And then of course, Julie Andrews, one of the stars of the movie. Dudley Moore was coming on, he was not a huge name yet, but then Bo Derek and myself, we were brand new in the business. So it was a blessing. Yeah, absolutely.
What was she like to work with, Sam?
She was very humble and very sweet. I actually spent all my time with her husband, John Derek. I mean, my gosh, he was 50. Craig, he was 58 years old in 1978. So here we are in our early 20s, and all he wanted to talk about were his movies in the 40s and 50s with their Rat Pack, which was Errol Flynn, Peter O'Toole. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and what they did and their sort of antics on the movie set and off of the movie set. Yes.
Dudley Moore, was he fun to work with? Was he an intense kind of person? Was he very funny?
He was, during the scene, and then of course behind the scenes. Matter of fact, at the Rat Party, we were in Mexico. Well, we were in Mexico and Hawaii, but I believe the Rat Party was in Mexico. And we had this long, huge sort of conference table with 30 or 40 people. And the food was still on the table and the drinks.
Yes.
And he decided to get on top of the table, and he danced from one end to the other end of the table. It was brilliant.
Dame Julie Andrews, of course, such a legend. I mean, Is it still a pinch yourself moment for you, Sam, to think, my gosh, I got to work with this amazing woman?
Yeah. When you're young, Craig, it's always best to talk less and be a really good listener. And I started to do that because, like you said, Julie Andrews was a legend and Blake Edwards is directing me. And I just thought, I just need to not speak unless I have a really important question, but I better be a better listener. And she was gracious. How do you describe Julie Andrews? Beautiful, gracious, classy,
Considering you were starting off your showbiz career and you are working with these greats, were they all nice and very fostering and encouraging to you?
Well, so much so that, remember, I'm on the movie for probably a month. It's a tiny part. I have only one line of dialogue. But when he found out, we were in Hawaii filming, he found out that Dino De Laurentiis wanted to see me regarding the movie Flash Gordon. And he knew that the scheduling wasn't going to quite work on his movie. Mm-hmm. He hired a private helicopter on the island in Hawaii, flew me into Honolulu Airport to catch a plane to Los Angeles to meet with Dino De Laurentiis. So I guess you can say Blake Edwards had a lot to do, or yes, he was very significant, had to do with me getting the part of Flash Gordon, even though the interview audition process took well over 8-9 months.
That was for Flash Gordon.
Yes, he got me there for the initial interview, and it was amazing. It was really amazing.
You look back over your early life, former Marine, as I understand it, you became this budding football player. And then in the 70s, you started doing some modeling work. Is that right?
For models, you have to be a stock size. Otherwise, starting out, you have to be a stock. I think it was a 40 regular, even a 42. I mean, they'll step out of bounds to really facilitate whatever needs for wardrobe. Maybe a 42, but I was a 44 and a 46 long. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have a whole, it's going outside their budget. But I tried that. But while I was modeling, experimenting, obviously I was in acting class and taking improvisation class and all of that. And yeah, so it's, those were the very early years.
And then in 1975,
Yes.
you did a very tasteful spread for Playgirl magazine. Look, what the heck? If Burt Reynolds can peel off for Cosmopolitan, why can't Sam J. Jones kind of let it all hang out for Playgirl?
Yeah. Well, Burt Reynolds was a big hero of mine. Again, as you know, in the 70s, he was huge. He was amazing.
You bet.
So he did this photo session for Cosmo magazine. I thought, well, wait a minute. If Burt can do this, then I could do this. I could do this too. So that was really the motive behind it all. And I did it. It didn't help me or hurt me in the film industry. It was just, it did pay some good money in 1975. I know that,
Oh, and let's be frank, Sam, it did get you a heck of a lot of attention.
Once you sign the contract, they can pretty much create what they want as far as the storyline. I think they turned me into, was it a multi-millionaire or a billionaire?
That's right. Andrew Cooper III, I think.
There you go.
That was it, yeah.
And which wasn't true, but it's okay. You have to, certain things where you have to stretch and or embellish. Okay. So, but yeah.
So I understand it though, in your case, you didn't need to stretch anything.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But actually, on a serious note about that, because, we can all kind of laugh around, but is it confronting, Sam, when you're in a studio like that or on a location and you've got to basically peel off and pose for cameras?
Well, look, when you sign the contract, you read the fine print, okay?
Yeah.
And this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I had no issue with it because I just said, look, we're going to keep this, confidential, meaning we're going to keep it. There's not going to be a whole lot of people. Absolutely not. It's going to be the photographer and maybe an assistant. So I'm okay with that. But getting to your point, I don't know how certain people do it with a whole lot of crew members present. Now, I did go on later on, had in a couple of I think two of my films, years later, a couple of the love scenes, they would primarily use my back side to cover up the girls' front side.
Yes.
And we're talking 50, 60 people right there.
Yes.
And I thought, there's no way. I know certain people can do this, can perform. For us, it was just acting. And I went out of my way to make her comfortable. I think I had 3 or 4 layers of material between us, stuff like that.
Yes.
But I thought to myself, if this was the real deal, let's say an X thing, okay? I don't know how you do it. I just don't know how you do it with everybody staring at you.
You're very popular on the autograph circuit. You'll be in Australia soon, so we're going to talk about that. When you're doing those autograph shows, has anybody ever brought along that particular issue of Playgirl for you?
Oh, of course they have. Of course they have. And that's fine, as long as it's, because there's a lot of young kids and stuff. So just so long it's covered up.
That's right.
I was doing a celebrity golf tournament. Oh gosh, probably 25, 30 years ago. And my oldest son is 39. And when he was with me, he was 12, whatever the math. Yeah. So maybe it was 25 years ago. He was with me on the golf course, a lot of people, and this man came out with the cameras, the press, probably 100 people had circled us. Yes. And he opened up this spread and said, "Can you sign this?" And I thought, give me that thing, put that away. And there's my son and lots of other young kids. I said, what is wrong with you? Have, at least cover up parts of that picture. Okay.
Yes, that's right. Now, is this true, Sam, that reading about Clint Eastwood's rise to fame is really kind of what inspired you to get going in showbiz?
I joined the Marine Corps. I started playing Marine Corps football, and I decided I got a little bit arrogant, and I decided I'm going to, I think the pros need me. I need to become a professional football player because they need me. I went to Seattle, and I tried out for the Seattle Seahawks. And guess what they told me?
What did they say?
They said, thank you, but we don't need you. Okay. I was a little bit down, a little bit depressed. But what's amazing about that, if we just lift our eyes up a little bit,
yes,
and just, okay, God, I know you closed those doors. And probably some of it was my fault because I got arrogant. But I know there's got to be something else out there for me. And then a buddy of mine said, hey, you need to read this article on Clint Eastwood. I read the article. He inspired me. I didn't say to myself, oh yeah, I can do what he could do. That wasn't my mindset. My mindset was I had a lot of respect for what he had to say because he'd been in the business at that point 22 years.
Yes.
And he said when he's not making movies, he can't stand to wait around. So he goes out and he does construction. I thought I got a lot of, digging ditches for swimming pools and stuff like that. If the heavy equipment couldn't reach the backyard. And that gave me a lot of respect. And I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to go to Hollywood. I don't know if I could accomplish what he's accomplished, but I definitely want to give it a shot. Now, and I love what Denzel Washington says. He tells us to dream and dream big, but a dream means nothing without a plan. So I went to Hollywood. I had a plan. Get a car. Okay. I bought my grandpa's car. I knew I had to get a job when I arrived. I had a place to stay when my aunt lived there. And I knew I had to join everything. I joined acting class. I got a job the same day and I joined an acting class the same day. Mm-hmm. Next thing you knew, within a couple of weeks or a month, I had a commercial agent going out for commercials. Yeah, it happened quick.
Hey, Sam, would you happen to have a photograph of yourself back in your Marine days?
Well, I just happen to have.
Wow, which one is you?
The very top row. If you count from the far right,
yes,
top row, count to your left, be the 7th Marine.
That is excellent.
So guess what the date is on that graduation day?
You tell me.
September 27th, 1972. Wow. That means I was in boot camp in June through September 72, which makes it 50 years.
Wow.
50 years a Marine.
50 years, and a very proud one too, I can tell.
Amen.
1980, and along comes a little something called Flash Gordon. Now, I know this is one of those kind of like iconic stories, but is it true that George Lucas actually wanted to direct Flash Gordon, but he was turned down?
He wanted to buy the screenplay rights. He wanted to make the movie. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure what happened, but I'm kind of guessing because when you read his story and when you read Dino De Laurentiis's life story, there's a section in there when Dino De Laurentiis, I think he was 13 or 14 years old in a small town in Italy where he grew up. And he saw this, Flash Gordon started out in 1934 as a comic strip in a newspaper.
Yes.
And then shortly thereafter, a couple of years later, a comic book. So he found this comic book on Flash Gordon, and he just said out loud in his hearing as a young teenager, I'm going to make this movie one day. Wow. So with that said, he became a huge filmmaker. And I think what may have happened, I think he maybe called King Features and he said, look, I'm going to make this movie. So if anybody tries to buy the screenplay rights, you give me a call first. I think that's maybe what happened.
You beat out the likes of Kurt Russell. The talk is Arnold Schwarzenegger to play Flash Gordon. How did it happen for you? What were the dynamics that were involved that got you into that outfit?
The obvious things were athletic football player and my naivete. This character is very naive. So, yeah, because I never really thought of any competition. It wasn't an arrogant mindset. I just thought, well, if they want Arnold, if they want Kurt, they're going to hire Kurt. If they want me, they're going to hire me. But you see, I didn't know at that time. I didn't know till years later that Kurt and Arnold were up for this part. But all I know is that this process started in Los Angeles and continued for many months. And then in early March, April, May, June, July, it was probably April, they flew me to England for 30 days of screen testing.
Wow.
I had no idea what was going on. Evidently, actors were going in one door, exiting another door, parking. I mean, just everything was non-disclosure, hush-hush with Dino. Yeah. And all I know is that it just went on. And finally, And when we talk about an old-fashioned Hollywood screen test with no video back then, we're talking about a camera crew, a wardrobe department, makeup department, hair department, everything, electricians, construction, props, all that. So we did that for 30 days straight, nonstop. And then he said, okay, I'm your Flash Gordon. You see, and I'd rather be told I don't want you than to be put in a pending mode, especially for 30 days.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I must have bit off all my fingernails. If I could have reached my toenails, Craig, I would have bit off no, I'm serious. If I could have reached my toenails, I would have bit off all my toenails. They just tell me you don't want me right away. But don't put me in this holding pattern for 30 days. It was torment.
There was a story going around, and tell me if this is true, that somebody saw you on a dating show and said, there is your Flash Gordon. Is that right?
Yeah, it's true. That was Dino De Laurentiis's mother-in-law. I was watching the dating game. I did an episode as the dating game, as just a normal contestant. I don't think they even announced this as actors. You're a normal contestant.
Yes.
And lost the date, but she turned to her son-in-law and said, hey, come here. Look at this TV show. I think that's your Flash Gordon right there. So I know for a fact that's how he called me.
But there was also, as I remember it, the Buster Crabbe Flash Gordon movie too, wasn't there, many years ago?
Yeah, all those 10-minute black and white serials.
That's right. The shorts.
And by the way, Buster Crabbe was incredible. Dino actually brought him in 2 weeks before Christmas, 1980, and Buster traveled with me. We did a couple of interviews together with him. He was wonderful.
Flash Gordon was so over the top when you think about it, so flashy, so gaudy. It is now, of course, a cult classic. Do you think, Sam, that was the intention when they were making it, to make it this completely over the top, almost this kaleidoscope of camp, really?
It was corny. It was camp.
Yeah.
The Dino hired Lorenzo Semple Jr., who wrote the original Batman television series. Now you have to remember, we had Nicholas Rowe was attached as the director in the very beginning. So Nicholas must have done a year of development and pre-production. And then at the last couple of weeks, he left. And Michael Hodges came in. Imagine, Michael Hodges came into this $30 million film in 1979. So Craig, if you do the inflation math right now, it's like you and I walking onto a $225 million budget right now.
Yep, lot riding on your shoulders.
Yeah. So my point is to address your question. It had those different looks. It was corny. It was camp. It was, are we supposed to laugh, or are they serious?
Yeah.
But I tell people when they bring it up, I said, just sit back and enjoy the ride, enjoy this adventure, really. But visually, if anybody who asks me, how do you define Flash Gordon? And the first thing I always say is it's a visual masterpiece. It really is. Because you remember, he brought in, Dino brought in Dianello Donati. Who's that? Well, he was the production designer for all the Fellini movies. Mm-hmm. So that's how we get that rich, vibrant look.
Did you know at the time, did you get a gut feeling that this was going to be a huge success?
No, I mean, I'd been in the business, I think, for a year and a half before this. And everybody talks, they would always talk up. It's always good to be positive. Oh, absolutely. But you can't give a defining or definitive answer like, this is going to be a huge success. It's going to make millions and you're going to go on and you're going to be a major megastar. You really can't. No one has that authority, especially even if you're senior level leadership for a network or a studio, because there's also other contracts that you have to fulfill with other actors. So I learned in that short amount of time, I knew what my priority was, Craig. My priority is to show up on set, to be as prepared or better prepared than any other actor, be on time,
And do your job.
and do that. But
Yeah.
as far as, because it can be it was very overwhelming for me the first day I walked on the set with Max von Sydow, Brian Blessed, Timothy Dalton, even though he wasn't huge at the time, and all these other famous playwrights, Richard O'Brien, who's an actor in our show. He wrote the Rocky Horror Show. John Osborne was a very successful playwright. And I just, in all these sets, and I usually the first voice in my head is negative. It says, you can't do this. You don't belong here. Who do you think you are? And usually the second voice usually says, shut up. Okay. You're here because they want you. And besides, all that other thinking is not the priority. The thinking is right now, what is expected of me at this very moment?
Yes.
So, and I just blocked out everything else.
You, of course, sported fabulously blonde, sun-kissed hair as Flash Gordon. You're not that kind of natural blonde, are you? So you had your hair dyed, is that right?
Well, of course, yeah. The character, Flash Gordon, had to have blonde hair. And what's amazing, Melody Anderson, who they brought in to play Dale Arden, she was a blonde, they turned to a brunette. And I was a brunette, they turned into a blonde.
That's right. Look at that. Melody Anderson, of course, as I remember it, she was actually a news reporter in Australia.
Yeah, you know what? You might be correct.
Yeah, well, of course, she was your gorgeous sidekick, Dale Arden. Did you two have a great chemistry off screen?
Well, we were brother and sister. I mean, literally. Yeah. I mean, you know, and my girlfriend was with us the whole time, who was becoming my first wife. Yes. And Melody lived with us. You know, Craig, if you ask Melody, how long did you live with Sam? Yeah. She would tell you a week. She lived with us for almost 3 months. Okay. So don't ever let her fool you. Okay. She was wonderful.
Yeah. And of course, I think these days she works as a much respected natural therapist.
Oh, yeah. She's been very busy. Matter of fact, we just appeared together the first time since COVID, because she's been so busy helping people the last two and a half years with her family therapy business. Yes.
Yes. Tell me about Max von Sydow. I mean, Ming the Merciless, such a wonderful, wonderful character. Again, yes. So completely over the top. But what about the man? I mean, you mentioned before, a total showbiz legend. Was he an interesting man to work with?
Again, you know, I don't use this vernacular, this terminology lightly, but when I use the word humble, humility, it seems like all the mega stars have this humility. Yes, they're confident, but there's also this incredible humility that goes along with it. And he did. And for me, he was my mentor. And he was very, just when he talked, he was always building you up and encouraging you. In fact, the first advice he gave me, we were at the Shepperton Studios at the commissary having lunch, and we'd already been making the movie for about a month. And he turned to me, he said, Sam, I've been watching you for a month. He said, stop picking up everybody's lunch bill. Save your money. Save your money. Well, that took me about 30 years to heed those instructions. Okay. But the other advice he gave me, which I heeded immediately, which he was just encouraging me. And it was very prophetic what he told me, very prophetic. So because he told me about, you know, to save my money, the next day on the set, I decided, okay, I'm going to help Max, you know, in a good way. My heart was pure. My thinking was all pure. And so we'd already shot his close up. And now back then, when the big cameras and all the lighting without video, when you went to change the angle, it would take sometimes 2 or 3 hours to relight, right? Mm-hmm. So he comes back to give me the off-camera lines. And he came back, Craig, in full costume as Ming the Merciless, this 60-pound costume. So I turned to him, I said, Max, you're off camera. You don't have to wear that. So he put his hand out. He said, Sam, my job in giving you your off-camera lines is to bring the very best of you out. So I will see to it which is the best way to do that. I will make that determination, and I expect the very same thing from you. I went, yes. But here's what he was prophetic about and what he was saying. Yes, exactly what I said, what he said, but also what some of the fine print, what he didn't mention is what I learned. A lot of big actors, they will not come back and give you, they've already shot their close-up, okay? They don't, now the camera's turned on me. Let's say I'm not the big name in the movie. And a lot of times they won't even come back to give their off-camera lines. Or if they do come back, it probably would have been best if they stayed away.
Yeah.
Because now they just want to make a joke and throw stuff at your face. You know, I mean, well, whatever. It's okay if you're doing a comedy, I got it. But what Max told me was very, very prophetic. Just, again, it comes down to professionalism and being off camera and giving your lines to the actor who's on camera is just as important for you as being on camera.
You're right, because a lot of people don't realize that normally when the camera turns like that and they're behind the camera giving you the lines, it's usually a stand-in or an assistant or somebody reading those things back to you. When he died, Sam, did that knock you really hard? Because
it did, because I was in contact with his son. And I was January of 2020, okay, I organized the big 40th reunion with Ornella Muti,
yes,
Brian Blessed, Melody Anderson. I was still in talks with Timothy Dalton's representation, and I was also in talks with Cedric, Max von Sydow's son, about us. And if Max couldn't join us at a Comic-Con, then we were actually planning to join him at a private function at a restaurant.
Yes.
And it was all planned. It was basically, matter of fact, the other actors signed the contract for the Comic-Con World Tour in January of 2020. And then I'm laughing, but you know what happened 2 months later, March of 2020, COVID hit.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah,
That was it.
I know.
Horrible. So, and then of course, by that time, let me see, Max passed away January of 2021, I believe. Yes. But we were still, but it was unfortunate. We didn't have a time that didn't work. But yeah, I've still been doing the tour. The Flash Gordon tour is carried over, and I've talked to Ornella Muti and Brian Blessed. I probably spend more time on the phone or seeing Brian Blessed and Melody Anderson than anybody else from the cast and crew.
And the great Robbie Coltrane, he made his movie debut in Flash Gordon, didn't he? As the man in the airfield. Do you remember? Have you got any recollections of working with Robbie?
Of course. No, I remember that vividly, because that was our only outdoor or exterior shooting. Yes. Everything else was soundstage. We were at the Isle of Skye in Scotland for a week. Yes. And of course, I didn't know Robbie Coltrane at that time. He was the young actor, just opening the door to the plane for everybody.
Yeah, I know. But how cool was it for you to have appeared in a Queen music video?
A lot of people say, Queen was great. Well, they were not only great, they not only complimented the movie Flash Gordon, they brought tremendous value.
Yes.
To the movie Flash. Matter of fact, when it was suggested to Dino De Laurentiis Queen do the music, he goes, "No, this is not right for my film." And then they had a screening, and he reacted off of the audience outrageous standing ovation, especially when it came to the music. And he goes, "Okay," so that he used Queen, yeah.
And I mean, I know you've been very candid in the past about you two came to blows, and in fact, they finished the movie off without you. But you, being the truly fabulous person that you are, and a big person in terms of spirit, you owned up to all of that, and you and he made up, didn't you, before he passed away?
Oh, it's wonderful. Yeah. Craig, it's when we hold on to hatred and anger, and then if you take it a step further, it becomes bitterness. It's really unforgiveness.
Yep.
When we hold on to that, We think that we're tormenting the other person. Okay, even let's just say it's even their fault. Okay, but really, if there's anything, and there was this dark cloud hovering over me and my relationship with Dino De Laurentiis for all these years, and I just couldn't shake it. And then I heard that voice, and I know it was the voice of God saying, "You need to call him."
Yep.
And I said, "Wait, but it wasn't all my fault. You know, it wasn't all my fault." He goes, "I don't care. Okay, it took two of you. Okay, so just call him up." So I called him up. There he was. He answered the phone. I think it was 15, 17 years later. And he answered the phone in Italy. And he goes, "How you doing?" I go, "Good." I said, "Dino, look, I just, first of all, I want to thank you for bringing me in for the part of Flash Gordon. It changed my whole life. And also, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me for any ill things that I caused you, financial, holding up production, whatever it was. Please forgive me for the choices I made back then." And he goes, "Oh, and yeah, it mattered to me. It really did matter, but it mattered to me what his reaction was. His reaction was, 'Oh, it's okay, Sam, don't worry about it.'" And I became a liberated, free man. Let me tell you, it's wonderful.
There was an excellent documentary that you partook in, Life After Flash, that I have to say, Sam, for any of your fans that got hunted up, it's brilliant. It is so raw. It is so candid. You talk about the fact that level of fame was really quite difficult to deal with. What was it like?
Well, in the beginning years, yeah, it was. But this is the platform, Craig. This is your platform. The good Lord's given you this platform right now. He's given all of us these platforms we have. So, okay, we get a nice paycheck. Sometimes it's not so nice. Yeah, okay.
That's right.
But
we smile.
Yeah, but it's bigger than us. I mean, when I have, let's just take the example of my autograph, my personal appearances.
Yes.
I always ask the person that comes to my table, I always say, "How you doing? How you doing?" "Oh, good, good, good." Well, every now and then, about every 100, especially during COVID, about every 100 people, right? And remember, they're at my table, so the line's about 10, 15, 20 feet away, so nobody can hear. So I said to one person, this has happened numerous times, but I said, "How you doing?" "Not so good." I said, what do you mean?" "Well, I'm dealing with stage 4 cancer." So I ask you, Craig, what should my reply be? Do you want just the autograph, the selfie, or do you want the combination pack? Is that my answer? No, it can't be my answer. The answer is, "Come here, give me your hand." And there's no broadcasting. There's no, letting people know what we're doing. I don't even ask the person. I just grab their hand real soft like this. And I just say, "You know what we're going to do? I want you in agreement with me right now. Are you in agreement with me?" Yeah. We're going to, and I just say a quick prayer for total healing in their body, and boom, boom. And it could be 5 seconds. It could be 15 seconds, but it's between this person and me. Yes. And that is the opportunity. That is the platform. It's not to say, it's for that, because one of my handlers asked me one day a year ago, what is your quote in life?" "Oh, I don't know. I got to think about that." She said, "Well, think about it." And then I realized within 30 seconds, oh, I know my quote. It's what happened today. It's what happens a lot. If not me, then who? If not you, then who? It's just that simple. Yes. So if the good Lord puts a person into, we could be walking down the street and some homeless person that smells like urine, he'll come up to us. It doesn't mean we have to give him a hug and shake his hand, but maybe if we have a bag of potato chips, or are you hungry? You want some? Yeah. Go into the convenience store and get them a sandwich or something.
I agree.
But if not us, then who? This is the opportunity. Again, it doesn't mean they have to take up our entire time. Okay. But this is our platform. And so Flash Gordon, it's bigger than me. It's bigger than anything I can offer. And this is what we need to do,
And I'm sure there's a lot of people now watching Sam thinking, oh my gosh, there's such a beautiful energy about you and an amazing heart, which there is. But they may not know that you've also had your dark periods. You know, for instance, you reveal in Life After Flash that there was typecasting. The whole thing kind of ruined your first marriage, and you even sunk into a dark depression.
When the documentary producers came to me and said, hey, I've got a couple hundred questions I'd like you to read, I said, okay. And as I read the first question, I heard that voice say, tear them up, give them back.
Mm-hmm.
I gave them back. And she said, what are you doing? I said, I don't want to be briefed on the questions. I said, I cannot plan or premeditate my answers.
Yep.
The only gift I have to give anybody that's going to be listening to me is all I can give them are my failures and my successes.
Yep.
That's what happened. The next thing I knew, because I didn't know what the questions were, well, I was kind of thrown for a loop in a good way. I mean, they brought up my brother and all that, who I've not talked about in 25 years or whatever. And I became very emotional, but I thought, well, wait a minute. It's not about me right now. Somebody's listening to this.
Yeah.
And they've been either through the same thing or something even more egregious, something even more critical.
Was it difficult talking about your brother?
Yeah, he died. We were 14 months apart. So I was 20 and he was 21, and it's a funny relationship with my brother. It's weird to say he was my life as an athletic brother, but as far as knowing the person, I didn't really know him. I know that's weird. Isn't that weird? That's weird. You grew up with him for 20 years of my life. Of course, I went to the Marine Corps at 17. But for the first 16 and a half years, you live with this brother of yours, and you don't really know him. There were some odd things happening, but but he was my life when, as far as building me up in athletics and the way he performed, he was a phenomenon. I mean, to this day, I've never seen anybody his caliber. Well, there's a few, but basketball. Matter of fact, he was a high school All-American basketball player, and just the way he inspired people in his athleticism. But anyway, yeah, this was brought up the first time. I was taken by it, but I said, you're going to roll with it. And I just, whatever came out, came out. Yeah, I got emotional, but it came down to, I believe, my last conversation with him before he died, did not, I basically said, you're no brother of mine, and then he died. I mean, I said, that's horrible. So we need to be very careful. We need to be very careful, especially family, friends. My pastor says something really cool. Even if you got to fire somebody, Craig, if you had to fire somebody tomorrow, let's say he was even a good friend and he's working for you, we had better end that conversation by building that person up. Mm-hmm. Maybe say, you know what, this isn't working out for you right now, but I know there's a job out there. Matter of fact, I think I know what's best for you. I mean, I got an idea. I want to make some calls where I think your skill sets can apply in this area. I want to make some calls for you. Is that okay? Rather than say, get out of here.
Yes.
You're no friend of mine. You're no brother of mine. So we really need to check that before we have our last conversations.
You were very candid in Life After Flash about the depression you sunk into because the phone stopped ringing. But what I really love, Sam, is that your second wife, Ramona,
yes,
she really did help you sort things out and clear your head. And I think put a second set of eyes over where you were going forward, didn't she?
Well, yeah, you know the story, right? When I sat there for almost a year medicating myself with marijuana. She had no idea because I was very good at what I did. I was outside, I'd smoke a cigar, I'd hide the smell, I'd have my Visine, have my breath drops, and I was medicating now, let me just say this about marijuana. I know I understand if somebody's dying, if somebody has a really, really bad, difficult medical condition, smoke it. But for me, the only medical condition I had was self-induced. Okay.
Yeah.
So for almost a year, I'm doing this daily. And let me tell you something about pot. Okay. once the high goes away, you got to keep doing it. You got to keep doing it. And I was doing it 8-10 times a day. Okay. Because I was pointing, this is 21, 22 years ago. I'm pointing fingers at everybody. It's their fault. Why are they not calling me for a movie deal? And one day my wife said, come here. She said, this 22 years ago, she said, I don't know what's going on in your life. Okay. But here's the deal. She said, you're a really good actor, honey, but the phone's not ringing right now. Okay. We have 2 kids in diapers, one just out of diapers. There's the door. You come back to this. There's the door right there. You come back to this family when you're providing for this family. Mm-hmm. Thank God she said that. Thank God.
Bet.
Thank God. So I called my buddy at a construction company. Here I am at 40. I'm 48. I'm 68 now. So I was 46 on a construction site. Okay.
Yeah. But didn't you take your mind back, Sam, to what inspired you in the first place, which was Clint Eastwood, who didn't want to sit around between movie roles. He got off his backside out the door and did a job.
It's a very good point. I didn't because I was still, still fighting it. The two very things I was fighting, right? The marijuana and having no value from not being hired in the film business.
Yep.
Are the two very things that were happening on the construction site. During the lunch hour, all the workers, all the laborers were smoking pot. And guess what they were talking about? Guess what the center of the conversation was for those first 2 weeks? It was all about actors and or menial actors, even somewhat name actors who are now not acting, but they're doing these low-end jobs. I'm not making this up. The two very things I was fighting over, and I would show up at lunch. They said, Sam, you want to smoke a joint? And no, I'm good. And by the way, and they were talking about some actor who's now a security guard or something, and then they'd say to me, oh, by the way, you look like that guy, I said, yeah, I get that all the time. Leave it like that. So the two very things that I was fighting to save my marriage, to really save my life, was the attack again. Got it. I listened to my wife. That door was open for a job to provide. And the two very things that were thrown back in my face, marijuana and you have no value because look at you on a job site. You're no longer active. Well, guess what I did? And I knew I couldn't do, even though I was very good at construction, I called up some of my military guys about, I heard they were doing high-end security operations. So within a couple of months, I had a whole new vocation, both vocations, a whole nother vocation as a security professional protecting VIPs and diplomats all over the world, primarily Mexico, cross-border security operations in Mexico. I had all my certifications. So here I am. But guess what happened? The phone started to ring to do more movies. And now I'm in a position, if the movie business is slow, yes, I do personal appearances too, but if all that's slow, I run security operations. If security operations are slow, then boom.
And so you've got it perfectly figured now. And talking about the phone ringing, I think it was 11 or so years ago that the fabulous Seth MacFarlane called, a massive fan of yours, an absolute massive devotee of Flash Gordon, and he wanted you for Ted.
That's right. And the same thing we've been talking about. He called me and he said, Sam, here's my story. When I was 8 years old, I saw your movie at the movie theater. And when I walked out, I knew I wanted to be a creative type guy.
And not only that, but I mean, of course, in Ted, you got to work with Mark Wahlberg. And I love the story you tell about, you'd sit around having lunch or whatever, and they all wanted to know about Flash Gordon because growing up, that was kind of the center of their universe.
Well, there's another humble man, Mark Wahlberg. I'm telling you, he's just amazing. He really, and he gave, you're talking about professional on the set and giving, he really gives his all. Very prepared. And Seth MacFarlane, of course, it was so cool to be part of his directorial debut. I love being part of anything inaugural.
Flash Gordon, I know it's 42 years later or so. Any chance of a sequel?
Everybody that purchased the screenplay rights, they were extremely reputable, proven people. So
Yes.
where's it at right now? And they just didn't follow through with the option. Don't know why. So right now, Disney bought Fox, a year ago?
Yes.
And Disney brought in Waititi to write it and direct it for the new Flash Gordon. And when they brought him in, they said, "You're going to do the animated version." But I said, "No, I don't know the man that well, Waititi." But I thought to myself, I know he's pretty creative. And after he starts doing his development and creativity, he's going to want to do a live action. Guess what?
Yeah.
Now he wants to do a live action Flash Gordon. So that's where it is right now. And this has been 30 plus, 30. I mean, we filmed it, 43 years ago. So it's been a lot of years in the making. And I hope really that they get this done, because it's time.
Fingers crossed for you, Sam J. Jones, because you're an absolute legend, and I love your heart and I love where your mind is at. Bit of fabulous trivia here. You got to work with an Aussie legend, an Aussie footy star turned actor, Mark Jacko Jackson, in an 80s series called The Highwayman. What are your memories of working with Jacko?
Well, he was a character. He was. We know, we have our athletes in America and they're mega stars.
Yes.
But as you know, he was a mega star there. And I think we filmed it in 1988, right?
Yeah.
And he was a mega star, and he did all these commercials and stuff. He and I bumped heads a little bit. I've noticed this even with me as an athlete actor, but dealing with other top stars, athlete stars who are just starting to transition into the movie business. It is a bit of a transition. Mm-hmm. I think the big athlete stars, sports stars, probably, I don't want to say they're a little bit more spoiled, but it's a different mindset. I mean, their rehearsal is getting out there on the athletic field, pumping the weights, training with the team. It's a little bit different when you transition to the movie business. Mm-hmm. You're not on an athletic field. You go into your room, whatever works for you, and you study your lines. You do your thing. So I know he dealt with that in the beginning a little bit, but you know what? It turned out he really kicked butt. He really pressed in, and we started to make it work. Craig, this was I've done 70 movies and hundreds of television shows, and this by far is my most favorite project. Is the Highwayman. It really is. We're
going all around the world now, but for those in Australia who are huge Sam J. Jones fans, and you're crazy if you're not, exciting news, because you are heading to our shores here in November. Supanova Comic Con and Gaming. I know you're going to be in Brisbane, and I know then you're heading to Adelaide.
I've done Supanova twice over the years. Last time was probably at least 6 years ago, maybe 7. And I took 3 of my children. We went to the Gold Coast and Melbourne. But Daniel Z, I call him Daniel Z, wonderful man. He's the owner of Supanova, and just incredible. I mean, everybody's got to come out. It's one of the biggest, at the same time, biggest, but intimate. And I know it's kind of strange. How can you be big and intimate? Well, we make it intimate, but it's so much fun. And the first weekend would be November 5th and 6th.
Yes.
That's in Brisbane.
Yes.
Right? That's Supanova Brisbane. And then Monday through Friday. So those dates are, what are those days? Those dates would be November 7th through the 11th. We're going to be in Sydney and Melbourne, all these other events, not Supanova. That comes the final weekend. But Monday, the 7th through the 11th, we're going to be doing movie screenings. It's all going to be advertised. It's all on the social media. And then that final weekend, which is November 12th and 13th, that's going to be Supanova in Adelaide.
And the thing is, Sam, you give your fans a lovely conversation. It's not just a quick photo and off you go, but you take photos, you do autographs, and you have a nice chat with them as well.
When you come to my table, It's your opportunity to tell me your story.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if there's a big line behind you, I'm going to say, I'm going to say to you, if you're going to say to me, I have a story to tell you. So my reply, if there's a long line, is going to be, is it a long story or a short story? Okay. So if there's a long line behind you, make it a short story.
Yeah.
If there's no big line behind you, then you can extend your story a little bit.
Yeah.
But this is your opportunity to tell me your story.
Yeah. What do you think, Sam, is the funniest thing a fan's ever said to you over the decade?
The craziest thing ever happened to me is a girl came up and asked me to sign her arm.
Right.
Yeah, this was years ago. I signed, it's Sam J. Jones on her arm. She came back 4 hours later. She had my signature tattooed to her arm.
Oh.
Tattooed. Okay.
Can I say, Sam, it has been an absolute joy yet again to chat with you. You're always so honest, so candid, and everything you say comes from the heart and absolutely from the right place. So I can't wait maybe to catch up with you in Brisbane when you're here.
Well, good. Let's do it. Come on. Okay. Absolutely.
There you go. You're on a promise. Absolutely fabulous. Good luck, safe travels, stay well, and continue to be inspiring and fabulous as you are.
Amen. Thank you. You as well.